absolute. I'm most pleased when I'm kind of overwhelmed by my stuff. So you walk in and there's just too much to look at. That's when I'm really happy and start to relax. And my wife is so happy that that's not in the house. I can't even tell you. So yeah, every man should have his own man cave.
I've got one more question here.
So can you further detail the sense behind every episode, how much research do they do, the math behind it, and so?
Can you talk a little bit slower?
Can he give more detail of the sense behind every episode? So how much research do they do? How math.
Is there a lot of research done before you shoot a show? Can you please?
Absolutely. There's a lot of research that goes into every episode. Sometimes it's relatively simple, like this one we just did from Pirates of the Caribbean. We didn't need to do a tremendous amount of research because we just needed to build a cage and make it the correct size. We got some trapeze artists to help us instead of pirates, figuring that their ability to move would be a resource we could count on. But I'll give you a great example. We did a myth a few years ago called Swimming in Syrup, which I knew we had to do the moment I heard that title. As my idea, I'd read about this study these scientists in the Midwest of the United States had done, where they had a pool full of syrup, and the myth is that you can swim just as fast in syrup as you can in water. Because while the thicker material slows down your forward momentum, it gives you more to push off of, and those two forces cancel out, and someone swimming in syrup would swim just as fast as someone swimming in water. And the moment I hear that, I actually think of myths like jokes. I always start with knowing what the punchline is, and I knew the punchline of this myth was me and Jamie in adjacent pools, like 100 feet long, swimming against each other, one of us in syrup and one of us in water. And then we started to, so, you start to do the research that it takes to look into something like that. Like, okay, well, obviously, if I'm going to do syrup, we need to quantify what syrup is. So you need to quantify viscosity. I actually found this organization in the U.S. that's literally like the National Society of, what do they call it? God, I'll have to remember the name of somebody who studies viscosity, has a certain scientific name, and they have a scientific organization. So I called up the president of the organization and I said, "How do I quantify viscosity for these syrups that I want to play with?" And he started getting really mad at me because the structure of my question was entirely wrong. And this happens all the time on the show, is we want to give an absolute value to something. You know that something's thick. You pour syrup, you pour motor oil, they have a thickness that you can see. So you think that they have a value that you could quantify, but they don't. It turns out viscosity isn't a value given to things for their thickness. It's actually a relationship between that thing and the medium that it's going through. So viscosity is affected by temperature, by speed, by all these by the vessel that it's even pouring out of. So we weren't going to be able to do this episode going, this syrup is X thickness and this is Y thickness. We actually had to become much more plastic about it. And in that episode, as we were doing the research and as we got the syrup and we got the material and we built the pools, that is an episode in which the plot of the episode changed every single day. Because every day, every experiment we did came to a different result than we expected. And at the end, actually, we thought, okay, for the finale of this episode, we want a swimmer who is a perfect constant. We want someone who swims for a living. So we got this Olympic gold medalist, Nathan Adrian, who's about 19 feet tall and 7 feet wide, and wears his medals when you ask him. He's just a beautiful specimen of humanity. And we gave him this pool to swim in. And first he gets in and he's like, oh my God. And it's cold water. So we've been swimming in cold water all week, but that's not what he does. He swims in warm water. And then we didn't put a line on the, well, also, he swam 70 feet without lifting his head out of the water. It was amazing. It took him like 3 strokes. And then we put him in the syrup, and he started pinballing off the walls. He kept on smacking into the walls, and we realized, actually, that because he's so specialized, he swims with his head down, following a black line at the bottom of a warm pool. That was what he does, and he's one of the best people in the world at it. But put him in milky syrup, and he's helpless. My time swimming in syrup was about as fast as his time, which by no rights should it be. I'm terribly out of shape. But what we came to the conclusion at the end was, oh my God, Nathan, we have to throw out your results because you're too much of a specialist. Me, the generalist, actually gives better results swimming in surf and water because I don't have a bias as to how I swim or the medium that I swim in. And to me, that's like we came up right to the end of that episode where all of our research had to be upturned and overturned every single day. It was one of the most difficult and also most fun times we've had on the show.
Adam, I've got 3 last questions for you. The first here from Bas.
Wat is zijn favoriete gereedschap naast de C4?
What's your favorite tool besides the C4?
My favorite tool, that's a really good question. There's a machine called a bandsaw. It's a band of steel, travels around 2 wheels. It was invented for cutting meat. It cuts steel and wood really well. I love the bandsaw, but they make a portable one. And actually, they make a battery-powered one. And I don't go anywhere without this. I would make lunch with it if I could. It turns very slowly. It's very hard to hurt yourself with it. It cuts through wood, metal, steel, brick, whatever you want. And it does it in this you know, when you first start making things with steel, the first tool someone gives you is a cutoff saw, which is this abrasive wheel, and it makes the most ungodly, awful, loud noise. It hurts everyone in the vicinity, and it shoots sparks and sets things on fire. So the difference here with the Portaband is it's one of my absolute favorite tools. But probably the thing that I couldn't live without from a desert island perspective would be a multi-tool on my belt. My favorite is a Leatherman right now. I've been wearing one on my belt for 25 years. And actually, just was in the hotel room about an hour ago trying to cut something out of one of my wife's dresses for her. And I immediately did this. Oh, but I've been flying, so I don't have my Leatherman. I've lost half a dozen of them on airplanes over the last few years. But when I'm in San Francisco, it's just never not on my belt.
This young lady, what's your name? Evelyn, what's your question?
Wat hij ervan vindt dat er zoveel jonge kijkers zijn en er zoveel fan van hem zijn.
Adam, how do you find it that there are a lot of young people watching your show and are fan?
Yeah, the younger audience, it's not something we ever expected. We never set out to be inspirational to kids or to educate them in any way. And I think that's part of the success. We don't know what we're doing. We don't have degrees in the science. We are just 2 guys who are curious. When we look at an experiment, the first experiment that we want to do for every myth is, what would 2 guys alone in their garage, guys or girls, what would 2 guys or girls alone in their garage on a Sunday afternoon do with this? And that's the first experiment that we do. And the narrative that each myth takes, where we go off in this direction, we go off in that direction, is based on arguments that Jamie and I have early on about what we think is the most important aspect of this story. So I think the fact that, and then the third thing is that most science shows are what I call demonstration shows, where a guy says, oh, here I took the baking soda and put the vinegar in, and now you have a volcano. But they don't ever really help you physically understand what's happening. They just explain it. And it's my one complaint with most science programming. We don't know what's happening. It is genuinely an experimentation show. And therefore, the stuff that's happening, we're learning from it just as the audience is. And I think the kids, they understand it when you're not talking down to them. They appreciate it, and they engage on that level. So we continue to ignore children in our heads as we're filming the show. But, you know, the fact that I've gotten emails from PhD engineering graduates who say that they got interested in the field because of MythBusters, and that's just weird. Thanks.
One final question here from the center. What's your name? Rob.
Wat is het leukste wat ik ooit heb mogen doen in MythBusters?
What was the best fun you ever did on the MythBusters show?
The best fun. Okay, that's a really good question because fun is a key part of it. I have to say, we did an episode a couple years ago called Water Slide Wipeout. There's an internet video of a guy sliding down this impossibly long slide, flying hundreds of feet through the air and landing in this little pool. And we saw it, and we thought, we have to do it, but we don't know how to do it. And then I figured out how we do it. We do it in front of a lake, so that you could miss the target and still not die. Not dying is a very important part of every experiment. So we set up this slide. It was 125 feet long. What is that? 45 meters. And we covered it with slick material. And we got on it and we soaped ourselves down with dish soap. And we slid all the way down, reaching something around 60 kilometers per hour at the bottom, flying through the air and landing in the water. And at the end of the first day, I landed this perfect hit in the water. It was beautiful. My feet first. The water was cold, but, you know, I hit perfectly, like, in a line, and I felt great. I felt actually totally awesome because Jamie wasn't nearly as good at it as I was. He kind of looked like a walrus flying through the air. So on the second day, it was decided I would be the one to do all the final tests, and it required me to do 2 tests for aiming and then a 3rd test to hit our pool. And the first test comes up. I should, point out that it's cold. The water we're going in there is this lake, this quarry lake, and it's very, very cold water. So when you hit it, you kind of get an instant headache from the cold. This was compounded by the fact that I was really cocky. And I thought, well, I know how to do this now. So I got on the slide and I slid down and I landed slightly off axis. And it really is like, it's like getting hit with a 2x4. You get an instant headache and it's really awful. And you're mad about it because it hurts. And now nothing's fun because you're in pain. But I got to walk back to the top of the slide and I got to do it again. And the second time I also hit wrong. And now I'm really not having any fun at all. I mean, this thing is so much fun, and I'm not having any of it because I'm hurting. And whenever we're doing something like that, we have a stunt coordinator, a guy who's a professional stuntman in Hollywood, and he coaches us through doing this stuff. He gives us the mental picture of what we're thinking about. He helps us understand what some of the dangers are, the things we want to avoid. And in this case, it was an old friend of mine named Nick Plachet. And Nick comes up to the top. Now I'm about to do my 3rd run, and we've set this little pool target in the water, and it's, many feet from me. I don't know if I'm going to hit it, and I don't even care anymore because I'm really mad, and I hurt, and I'm cold. And Nick says, "Do I need to tell you anything?" "No," he says. "I want to ask you something. Are you a friggin' stuntman or what?" I'm like, and he says, because that's what I tell my guys in L.A. I tell all the stuntmen I know in L.A., Adam is the real deal. He can do anything that you guys can do. He's a genuine, bona fide stuntman, and he can do it. So, Adam, are you going to do it? He says, it's not in here, it's in here. All the stuff happens here. He goes, the only thing I want you thinking about when you hit the water is, does my director want another take? And then he said, I'm not exaggerating his dialogue at all. It was totally like a movie. And then he says, I'll see you at the bottom. And he walks down to the bottom. And sure enough, it was the right mix of things to say to my tired, addled, and in-pain brain. And in the episode, you can see it, I swoop off the slide in this perfect arc with my arms outstretched and my eyes closed. You fly for way longer than you think is humanly possible. And then I feel the water hit my feet, and I landed right in the center of our target without even wrecking our target. And it was one of my favorite things I've ever done on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
I've got the... We're not finished yet. I know if I ask here in the room who wants to take a picture with Adam, I see 1,300. Yeah, I thought so. We have a plan. There are a few children here with a button on it, superfan. They can come forth. Jullie mogen naar voren komen. Jullie gaan met Adam op de foto. But there are chances for the rest of you too. Check your chair. If there is a flyer under your chair, you can come forth with 2 or 3 people and take a turn with a picture. Under your chair. Daarna. Anyone with a flyer under their chair? No one? No, no. No. No flyers? Yeah, I've got one. Are you going to do the picture by yourself or you want to take a friend? Call the names.
Maarten Toxopeus.
Maarten Toxopeus.
Inge dos Santos.
Inge dos Santos. Please come forth for a picture. Who has a flyer? Jij bent de volgende. Ga jij een groepje daarachter? I think there's one more. Ja. Okay, when the picture is taken, please. The next group, please. Thank you. Thank you. The last.
Oké.
We doen de interviews even buiten hoor. Hij moet uit de zaal. Ja? Stefano? Afronden.
All right. Thank you very much to all of you for being here. Thank you very much to you, Adam. It was great. I really appreciate it. I always like when you talk. It's awesome. So thanks a lot for coming. I hope you enjoy your time. This is a unique opportunity you had, I had. And let's give a round of applause to Adam for his great presentation.